All right, it's officially 5 o'clock by my time, so I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order on May 11th. My name is Sean Eystone. I'd like to welcome everyone. Sharing this call with our fellow directors. Let's see, I gotta make sure I get which ones are actually here. Etsy, Eastham, Malone, and Williams directors are joining us. Our other two directors are doing their civic elsewhere right now. We're also joined by Superintendent Degner and Recording Secretary Kim Colvin. So I'd like to welcome you all. And we can get started. The first thing on our agenda is our student representative update. And on my list, I have West High, I think first. Yes, and I saw real quick that Aditi was here.
Hi, good evening. I hope you all can hear me okay.
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm Aditi. I'm a senior at West, and this is likely going to be my last update for you all. So I wanted to thank you again for allowing me this time and space over the last 2 years. So West has celebrated many winners this past month at the Iowa State Science Fair, including winners and finalists in the categories of mathematics, microbiology, and engineering. Additionally, a junior, Shreya Kuller, won not only 6 awards, but the grand prize from the entire state of Iowa, and will now go on to compete at the International Science Fair. Additionally, last year's Science Fair winner and current senior, Deja Taylor, was also on the talk show Ellen 2 weeks ago to discuss her new patent pending Beat Sutures, which was part of her Science Fair project last year, which is very exciting, not only for her, but for the entire West High community. West High's math team, Mu Alpha Theta, also took home the state math championship for the 17th consecutive year, with individual winners in not only each category, but also from each grade level. At this year's Junior Engineering Technical Society, also for short called Teams, West was named Best in State, and for the 11th and 12th grade division, which is called Jets, West was named Best in the Nation, and I believe that they placed 2nd overall. West High junior Shreya Kuller was also named the first ever State of Iowa Student Poet Ambassador and was inaugurated April 30th at the state capitol, where she also went on to read 2 of her works. Senior Divya Shaimal was also honored as one of the top 10 students in the class of 2021 by the Des Moines Register, which is an award incredibly well-deserved. Student and current junior Hana Kiyamoto was also awarded the Iowa Student Free Spirit and Journalism Conference Award. So she, along with 50 other students from 49 other states, as well as Washington, D.C., will attend a journalism conference this summer. And Hana is also the West Side Story print co-editor-in-chief. Looking ahead, the West High Theater Department will be holding their spring musical, Into the Woods, May 13th through 16th at the West High Courtyard. And the musical will also be live streamed to those who want to watch. Other than that, West is wrapping up its final 2-3 weeks with AP tests next week and graduation on, I believe, June 6th. That's all I have for you all today. So thank you again for your time. Good evening.
Thank you so much for your report tonight and all of your previous reports and the time you put in. We really appreciate it. All right, next up we have Tate High and Peyton Starbuck is here. Oh, you're muted still.
Sorry about that. Howdy, everyone. I hope everyone's having an amazing afternoon. My name is Peyton Starbuck, and I'm a junior at Tate High School. I'm the new student board representative for Elizabeth Tate High School, and I'm thrilled to be here. This afternoon, I'd like to start off by recognizing an amazing Tate senior, Jay Walrich. After working with local poet Caleb Rainey in an English class at Tate, Jay has become a regular member of Caleb's writing club called IC Speaks. Jay has always enjoyed reciting poetry and has entered several contests, including the statewide Poetry Out Loud competition, last year where Jay won 3rd place. More recently, Jay's poem titled I'm Empty Reality won 3rd place at an IC Speaks poetry contest and was published in the Real Mainstream Media newspaper. We are proud of Jay and happy to congratulate them for continuing to pursue their passion for poetry. This trimester, Miss Parham's English 9 class read Shakespeare's drama, Romeo and Juliet, as an extension of her classroom activities. Miss Parham invited Ben Walter, a UNI acting graduate and fighting choreographer, to come to Tate to teach stage combat techniques. Using fake swords, students learned classic sword fighting moves, and all of the drama in the play came to life. Students had a lot of fun learning new skills and really enjoyed sparring with Mr. Walter. The school year will soon be over, and on May 28th, we're planning an end-of-the-year party. On that Friday afternoon, we will dismiss class at noon to enjoy a few hours outside listening to music, enjoying a catered lunch, and playing games. We reserved an obstacle course that we will set up for students as well. Our end-of-year parties are always such a good time, and after a long year of dealing with COVID-19, this one promises to be more enjoyable than ever. On Friday, June 4th, we'll be holding a senior awards assembly and have another barbecue lunch in honor of our 52 graduating seniors. This is the seniors' last day of school, and after lunch, they will hold graduation practice at the Angler Theater at 1 p.m. Our seniors have worked hard through so many challenges this year, and they're excited to know that they will be able to be together this year for a formal graduation celebration at the Angler. We'd like to invite all of you to attend Tate graduation. That's all I have for now, and thank you for supporting the Tates at High School, and thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Peyton. I got my physical invitation to Tate's graduation in the mail today. So it's nice timing. I don't see, let's see. Didn't see either our Liberty or City High reps here. Did they come in the last few seconds? Don't believe so. So I think we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our ICEA update. Brady Shutt.
Directors, Superintendent Degner, thanks for having me tonight. I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone in all of our buildings for the successful completion. And I think that we are done now with the Iowa statewide assessment of student progress. It's always and Diane saying maybe we're not completely done, but oh gosh, we're on our way though. I think we can say it's a huge endeavor in any year. And because we were notified rather late in the game, it became even more of an endeavor. So that everybody from Diane and her team all the way down into the buildings just have done a fantastic job of being, flexible and agile as we've worked those in. And I think students have had a good experience. We also will begin, and Aditi had mentioned this, we actually usually have a 2-week window for AP testing. There's now 3 different administration periods, each of 2 weeks in length. And so our AP testing at our senior high level, which is a really nice accomplishment for students in our AP programs, just even to take the test, will be starting here soon. And that again requires a lot of flexibility on the part of our staff all the way up and down the system. So just a big shout out to everyone for the work that they're doing and staying, and being flexible as we help students have good experiences with those. Thanks.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it. So next up, we have our community comment section. So if you're an attendee here and you would like to make a comment, you can use the raised hand feature and I will call on you and Kim will give you the rights to speak. So is there anyone that would like to speak to the board tonight? Okay, no hands are going up, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the agenda approval. So I would entertain a motion for that.
I would move we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second.
All right, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you, Kim. Next up is our consent agenda. I'll ask if board members have any questions on the bills, but I had a question that's not specific to these bills, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there maybe for future bill review. I was wondering, Les, if there was a way to maybe have an extra document or somehow mark it in these reports for anything that are eligible for, like the ESSER funds might pay for it, just to have that kind of a running tally. I know not everything would show up on these bills, payroll and things like that, but I was just wondering if there was a way to note that somehow. So you don't have to answer now, but maybe keep that in the back pocket as something we can try and do in the future. But I didn't have any specific questions to these bills. Did any other directors have any?
No, I reviewed the bills this week or this period. I didn't have any questions. I will say it was a fun period to review lots of graduation expenses. Happy to see that we've got some celebrations planned for our students, but no questions.
All right. Are there any items that directors would like to pull?
Sean, I might ask if we could pull item 8, the data equity cohort MOU, for just a brief conversation.
All right. Any other items, directors? All right. If not, I would entertain a motion for consent minus item 8.
So moved.
A second.
All right. Kim?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, so the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, so let's look at item number 8, the data equity cohort MOU. Charlie?
Thanks, Sean. I noticed this item and I'm actually very enthusiastic about it. The item is has the district joining a project called Data Equity Cohort. And from the description that was provided, I think by maybe Adam or Diane, to my questions, it looks to me like that the joining this cohort will really facilitate our ability to use the multitude of data items we collect for guiding our equity efforts in the ongoing time. So I really appreciate the staff's taking the initiative to continue to widen and expand our data collection and ability to use the data we have in guiding our equity work. So again, I'm not quite sure which staff members to compliment, but I'm be happy to compliment all of you. So.
Very much
Thank you
appreciate
to
that.
Adam for leading the work in this area. So thanks for that, Charlie, and thank you to Adam. So sorry, Adam, you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say very much appreciate the comments, Charlie. We're really excited about this work as well. And on our leadership team here, Diane's been involved as well as Laura Gray's been involved in advancing our involvement with this project.
Great. Thank you very much, Adam, and everyone else. So Sean, if it's okay, I'd move to approve consent item number 8.
Thanks, Charlie. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you, Kim. And we will move down to our presentation section and have a financial report. Pass it off to Les, probably.
Yes, thank you, President Eystone and directors. You do have 2 pieces of the quarterly report in the packet tonight. The one is focused on the general fund and the other one provides the quarterly update of the facility master plan spending with GO bonds. I would like to just take a second to focus on the general fund and the unspent balance calculation. Matt's going to speak a little bit later here about the ESSER funds, and Sean, you did bring that up with some of the expenditure side. We are looking to use the ESSER funds to help support the general fund, and as well as supplant in the general fund, which is allowed with these funds. And so you will see upward trajectory of the unspent balance over the next couple years because of the ESSER funds. We have done this in a very conservative manner at this point in time, and continue to be very conservative with the estimates of the state supplemental amounts that are provided by the legislature, as well as enrollment growth for those patterns going forward in the next couple years. So for example, we only have a 1.5% growth in the SSA, and a combined about 330 students over the next 2 years, which would only put us back to our pre-pandemic levels. And so I think Iowa City has a trajectory of enrollment growth that far exceeds that. So you can see how conservative that is. As new information becomes available, we'll continue to update that and provide it in future quarterly reports as well. But I just wanted to provide that basis for that, what would be a change in the trend of that unspent balance as we go forward here in the next 2 years. And that's the primary item in that report that probably will, if it didn't catch your attention, I would suggest maybe you go back and just take a second look at it and note that trend. We'll continue to have those discussions. And as I said, Matt's going to provide an ESSER update here in a few minutes as well, that will kind of recap some of that as well in our district plans.
Thanks, Les. I always scroll right down to those 2 line items, the one right above that too, right? And that's lovely color coded, and I really like to see green and not red. So I appreciate that. I think what that means for us, right, as we start to see whether or not we do gain back our enrollment, and whether SSA is a little more robust than our conservative estimates, we can spend a fair amount of time and during the next school year really planning on what kind of gains we can make in staffing or programs or whatever else we want in the following year. Because I think it's going to take next year at the very least to start to see some of those numbers change to give us a better idea of what we can do. But I think we'd all be chomping at the bit a little bit to start spending some of it if we got more back than that. But I think we can use next year really to make sure we're doing that in a smart way, and really getting good gains there. That's my soapbox.
I will add on the ESSER funds, and I was in a meeting today, that there is a strong push from school districts to ask for an extension from the federal government past June of 2023 to expend these funds. At this point in time, I have no idea what a timeline, if that would be approved, and what change that would be made. But the point being is that it is very difficult to plan and put together meaningful programs that will return our student learning within a 2-year window. And when you consider that summer school of 2023 would not be fully eligible because it crosses over fiscal years, it doesn't allow us much time to provide meaningful resources to assist our students as they recover from the pandemic losses. And so whether that happens or not, I don't know, but maybe Matt has some feedback or insight on that from any of the things he's shared or heard from other superintendents. But we will continue to monitor that as well and incorporate any of those changes into our spending. But right now we're planning on that roughly 26-month window from right now in terms of being able to access those funds.
Awesome. Charlie, it looks like you have something to add.
Well, yeah, to an extent, I guess, Sean. My inclination is, as I've expressed before, is to do the programming, to put the resources we need in place, even though we may not have an immediate way of paying for them over the long term. So Les, can you clue us in, or tell us a little bit about what's the value of ESSER funds to this or other district if if the districts are going to avoid using those funds when they're most available? And I may be misrepresenting exactly what you're describing here.
If
so
I can jump in
apologize.
here, Charlie,
Sure.
I don't think it's avoiding using those. I think it's about being smart and being able to potentially continue something longer. And so if we, use all of those funds in the very next year, then you're maybe not planning for something you could do 2 to 3 years down the road. And so we'd like a longer time to expend those funds so that potentially some of the things we start also would have a longer glide path to continue to potentially work into our long-term operating budget. And so I think that's part of the consideration, is that if it's a really short window and it's a really large sum of money, how do we spend that much money in a very tight window? And so going into that third year for something like summer school or for any of these other positions gives us better capacity, as Sean was talking about, enrollment growth, for our budget to potentially increase, and for us to potentially consider holding those positions long-term into our system. There's no way to spend these funds, without looking at positions, really. I mean, we're going to account for some other things, but the bottom line is, a lot of it's going to go to people in some way, shape, or form.
Right. So I get the notion of asking the federal government to extend the time in which we have to use those funds, right? And that makes sense to me. If that doesn't materialize, then again, what's going to guide, or in your view, what's going to guide our decisions if we have to use these funds in a shorter time frame?
Sure, and that's still the way we're planning on it, Charlie. And so when we get to that next agenda item, I'll kind of give you the big categories that we're talking about in these. That way, I mean, and I think that'll help probably clear up, like, hey, these are the categories we're looking at, where most of these expenditures are going to go. And we still have to look at in that 2-year time period. We don't have different authority to do something different right now. And so that's the way we're planning for and accounting for it currently.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any questions from other directors on this? Well, as always, thank you, Les, for the work you put into it. It's always good to see this information. It's even better when it looks a little rosier than it has in some of our past updates. So I appreciate that even more. Let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda item then. And it's our return to learn update. So take it away, Matt.
Sure, thanks. And I might actually just work backwards here and start with the third piece, and then end it with Amy, Nick, and Diane talking about summer 21 and the end of the school year. So the first thing, the last thing on, and number 3 on there, is the COVID data and where we're at with that. As we've tracked our COVID infection rates or positivity numbers for staff, students, in the overall county rate, we continue to see good news on that front. The Johnson County positivity rate for today was 3.7%, active student cases 0.42, active staff positive cases at 0.09. And so those numbers have continued to go down since we made the quarantine protocol change from Johnson County to the Iowa Department model. So I don't think we're seeing any major red flags or reason to change or do anything different on that front. So I think that's a piece of good news for us. But I pause there and ask if there's any questions before we leave that one so quickly.
I just have a quick question, Matt. With the new expanded eligibility for 12 to 15-year-olds, I know that we're running vaccine clinics at the high schools for the older kids. Do you know, and it may be premature, but would we be in a position to run more clinics for that larger group of kids?
Yeah, we've talked about that, Lisa. The short answer is no, and I'll let Chase expand on that for why we wouldn't consider those. Not that it's a bad idea, but just some of the other things we ran into when we looked at trying to do the older students. So Chase, you can go ahead and fill in some of the holes there.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We are working with Johnson County and other partners in the community about how we get the vaccine to the student population. But with the end of the school year coming, and also these being minors and concerns about making sure that we have parental consent, Johnson County is working through ways that they're going to set up clinics throughout the county, as well as UIHC. And so in those conversations, we believe that it's probably in our best interest to partner with them and find ways to help get information about the vaccine itself, about opportunities to get the vaccine to our families, and then help them get to those clinics that the county or the hospitals are already running. And that's, kind of a result of the ongoing dialogue. It just happened in the last 24 hours, the approval the last 48 hours. But we've already been in contact with the county today. We have a meeting set up with UIHC tomorrow to talk about, okay, what is the information we need to share with families? How many of these opportunities are available, and how do we get that information to them here as quickly as possible? Along with summer coming, we have students in this age group that are in over 20 of our buildings. And so just from a logistical standpoint, it would be very difficult to set those up, especially as county and providers look to provide the greatest number of vaccines at each site. And so that really isn't as conducive as when we were working with our staff. It's important to us. So Lisa, I'm glad you brought it up. It remains a priority for us and for our families as we go into the summer. It's just going to look different as we look to partner more with organizations in the community.
I think the other thing I'd add is our interest was fairly low when we did the vaccines at the high schools, just from the standpoint that families were accessing other healthcare agencies to get that vaccine. And so we don't think it's because we had a low percentage of people seeking the vaccine, but they were just seeking it in other ways that already been engaged with their healthcare provider to get access to that vaccine. So that's a positive on different fronts, but Chase did a nice job of outlining there why it won't necessarily look the same for this age group.
So Matt, is there a way for the district or other districts to get an idea of what the prevalence of vaccination is among the students in the district, or is that not something we can figure that we have information about?
Sorry, Matt, go ahead. Do you want me to jump in?
No, you can jump in. I mean, I think I'm probably thinking through the same stuff you are, so.
Yes, Charlie, I mean, technically we can have that information, but I think like all confidential student records, whether they're educational or health, we would have to have a legitimate reason to know that. And at this point, there are no statutes or the regulations on the books about students having to have the vaccine to be able to come to school. And so it would be somewhat difficult for us to, and I'm talking off the top of my head here.
Yeah, it'd be self-reported or volunteering that information at best. And then it's kind of hard to rely on, accuracy of that too, I think, Charlie, but
right.
Yeah. I mean, Chase is right. I mean, we haven't stipulated that you have to have that vaccine to be here. I don't think that'd be a very strong position at this time with the emergency, authority that's been granted to give that vaccine. I think it'd be a hard component for us to require that, at this point of people. So
but
I think it would really be about volunteering, that information, and then how good is that data?
The other piece on that is the county's been really great about giving us updated, like broad general stats about who's getting the vaccine and what those percentages are. And so I think that we would just continue to work with the county, and they could give us that information in terms of individuals in those age groups percentage wise. It might be more countywide than it would be specific to our school district, but we'll ask them that question, Charlie, about what information they're comfortable giving to us, as opposed to us trying to use various access points that we might have into student records individually. But I know it's important, and so we'll work with the county on what type of data they can get back to us on that.
That source may be really better for us,
Probably.
all in all, for what we need to know.
Sounds like we move on to the next topic, maybe, Matt.
So the next topic is really about planning for the following school year as we look at that. And we got into a little conversation around the ESSER funds on the quarterly financial report piece there. And so really for tonight, I don't have an extensive piece to give you. We're still in the process of working through this. You guys know we're in the process of negotiations. And so some of our plans are, of course, not finalized in this area until that process gets completed. And we'll be able to give you a better idea of those and hear the feedback on those. But I did want to share with you at least some of the big buckets we're looking at for that ESSER funds. And of course, that has to deal with COVID mitigation and prevention measures, technology expenditures, at-risk supports, continuity of service, those things we just wanted to use those ESSER dollars to make sure we could keep those services going, but that we might have incurred more cost on or will incur more cost on moving forward. Instruction under ESSA, learning loss, and then finally unspent balance support. That was really one thing for us. We were able to avoid a budget cut this spring, knowing that we had access to those ESSER dollars. Otherwise, we would have been looking at a budget cut with our enrollment decline. And so those are kind of the big groupings. And I think a potential next step for us is obviously to get through negotiations, to continue to filter in those supports, those resources and ideas that we get from engaging our different teams, and then to have a more in-depth conversation about what that actually looks like in those different categories with you guys. And so that may be best in a future work session or at a future board meeting to talk about, but I did want to at least kind of frame your thinking around those are the major kind of groupings that we've looked at for those ESSER expenditures at this time. So I don't know if you guys have any kind of general questions on that approach or the potential of a follow-up conversation where we could dig into that a little deeper. And if not, we'll just kind of proceed that way, and we'll continue to provide more information and updates as we have it. But like I said, kind of being in the middle of staffing and negotiations right now, it's important for us to complete that process first. So really then that takes us to our last return to learn component, and that's the end of this school year and what plans we're engaged with for summer of 21, which of course links to some of the ESSER dollars conversation I just talked about. But I'm going to turn that piece over to Amy and then let Nick or Diane provide any updates they might have in that area too.
Thanks, Matt. Good to see you all. Again, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about year-end activity. Nick's specifically going to talk to you about graduation. And then as far as summer school, Diane will fill in all of you with where we've been recently with elementary summer school offering, including our conversation around target audience and where we think we're going to be at with staffing on that. And then Nick's going to come back and talk again to you about credit recovery starting after we close out this school year. So Diane, I'll turn it over to you first.
Sure. So very similar to what I had reported 2 weeks ago when we met at the elementary, our summer school is going to be run at each of the elementary schools that aren't under construction at this time. So there are a couple buildings that have to work with a neighboring elementary school to serve their kids. While we would have liked to have offered it to all the elementary students, because of our struggle in getting teachers who are, able to work over the summer. And, after this year of everything that we've asked teachers to do, a lot of them are just really looking forward to having a few weeks of downtime. So our focus right now is to try to ensure that at least for all of our first grade students who were not proficient in the winter screening of FAST will be offered some summer school tutoring this summer. So that could look different at the buildings depending on how the buildings are able to kind of staff that program. So it could be up to like a 3-hour program where the kids might come in and do some math and do some reading and have maybe a story time and recess kind of involved in that too. Or it might just be a straight like 1 hour tutoring or 30 minutes of tutoring, intensive tutoring on math or reading. And again, more focused on what staffing the building is able to come up with. So that might look just a little different from building to building, but focused on our first grade kids. And then if we do have the staff that we could maybe offer something beyond that, we would. Nick, I can transfer it to you.
I didn't know if we had a transition there. So thank you so much.
Sure.
I thank you to Director Williams for bringing up the graduation stuff in the review there. We are excited about that. We're working on a variety of details with that event because we're changing our venue to the Extreme Arena in Coralville. So that's been not only the challenge of the pandemic, but now having a new facility to work with. And Kim Colvin and I were kind of talking today even about parking, like it's just all these different details that come up. So just working through those, but we are excited. The teams are getting excited. We should be getting tickets out to families here soon, which is a nice piece. So that way they'll have their 4 seats. They'll be assigned seats, and that's part of our process. And then we started in a dialogue today in our secondary meeting about little things like, what's it look like when a student walks across the stage? We can't really shake their hands probably, right? Like what does that look like? So we were just trying to talk through some of those and begin some of those conversations. But we're excited that we'll have that opportunity to celebrate kids, and I think it'll be a nice moment for staff as well, kind of having that symbol at the end of the year. Also, I think you heard from the Tate student, they're getting ready for an end of the year celebration, and West High had already had theirs, and this weekend, or their prom, and then this weekend we have City and Liberty up on deck. Hopefully the weather holds out for some of the outdoor activities there. So if you know any rain chance or anything, to keep that away, I'm sure they would appreciate that, because trying to move it from there. And Amy, do you want me to directly go right into credit recovery then too? Yep. So I'll go ahead there, and need to give Kate Callahan a shout out on this. I mean, she's been doing a lot of great work here to continue our traditional credit recovery work that would exist in the summer that we know we're going to have, and that'll start as soon as the school year ends. And then we're working with our teams. We talked to the junior high team today about what that summer school option will look like for us at the end of July and into early August, and working on some of the skills that need to be developed, along with some of the social emotional pieces that we want to touch on. One of the things we continue to come back to is some of our kids haven't set foot in our junior highs or high schools ever, right? Yeah, so we need to make sure we're finding a way to let them get that opportunity to be back in our school. So that's a little bit of an update from the secondary side.
Thanks, Diana. Nick, are there any questions from the directors?
Amy, maybe could ask Diane a little bit to talk a little bit more about our ability to have an equity result for the students who are in first grade who are going to be invited to summer school, especially if there are differences in teacher availability. Is that something we can we're concerned about right now? Is there anything that you could ask the board to provide to enable you to do that better?
Well, we have given the buildings minimum expectations. So all first grade students who are not proficient in reading and math need to be invited. They need to be offered at least 10 hours of tutoring over the course of the summer. So we know that that will be offered equitably to any first grade student. And then, as we said, there may be some teachers or some buildings that might be able to offer a little bit more than that. I didn't think it was in our best interest to tell those buildings not to offer. If they could offer a little bit more, let's try to offer a little bit more. But we wanted to make sure that there was at least a minimum offered everywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, I think that's all for us, Sean, on Return to Learn.
All right.
Will anybody else be sad to see that topic go? Sorry.
Yeah, we're not returning anymore. We're
yeah,
learning,
exactly.
So
yeah,
that's good.
We're gonna have to agenda it something different next time. Yeah.
No, I appreciate all the work that the team's doing, and I know there's a lot of ground to make up. Right? We talk about recovery and stuff. I mean, it's not insignificant. So we can joke a little bit about being the end at the Return to Learn, but you guys all have a lot of work to do still, and I know you're working on it, so I appreciate it. But let's go ahead and move on. Next discussion item, it just says work session update. So I'm assuming that was an update from our work session last week on our facilities master plan, I believe is what we're gonna cover. I don't know who's gonna
Yeah, Chase is going to lead us off on that one. So Chase can go ahead and start there, and then I'll button it up with the preschool part of the conversation we had last week.
I mean, for the community, the board was there. I thought we had a great work session to continue our planning process for community engagement for FMP 2.0. It's going to be more of a theme-based engagement around type of themes that the community wants to see drive the FMP 2.0 rather than project-based like we did the first time around. That planning process will continue over the next probably 6 weeks before we move into community engagement during the summer. We're going to do it in a variety of different sessions. We haven't announced those dates or times yet, but there will be virtual opportunities as well as individuals will have the opportunity to engage if they can't make one of the sessions. So more details to come on that as we move through May and into June. And as a reminder to the board, we have a work session at the beginning of June so the board can set and discuss the guiding principles for the overall lead of the FMP 2.0 work. But just thank you again to the board for your efforts last week as we continue to move this process forward. We're really looking forward to engaging the community over the summer. It's exciting. These are fun topics. And so something that we continue to look forward to. Matt?
Yeah, and then the second item, sorry, I was pausing there to see if you guys had anything you wanted to add in, but the second item there that we did talk about was preschool and kind of a shared goal or vision around preschool and the offering, the current status of preschool in the district, and trying to look at where we can do more and kind of be more as a district to serve greater capacity of students. And I think that's a shared goal that we were able to align around at that work session. And so excited, just like Chase said, about that opportunity as well. And of course, that will be part of that conversation for FMP 2.0, but we also know there's some work we need to do in the interim time period if we want to keep that conversation rolling and getting it started and moving it forward in a positive direction. So that was the other update, to provide to the community, is that we did have a short conversation around preschool, and the board is aligned around moving that effort forward. So we're excited about that as well.
Directors want to weigh in with some of their thoughts from the work session? All right, thanks again, all. Let's move on. We do have one action item, setting off a request to SBRC. We want to get a little context about this, Matt or Les, whoever, Chase, I don't know.
I'm assuming Matt and Chase want me to jump in here on this one. As you are aware, the severe cold spell that hit the southern United States caused a real crunch on the natural gas supply and the subsequent costing of that product. And the district felt that as well and incurred approximately $170,000 to $175,000 of increased expenses for 1 month of natural gas cost in February. And to provide just a little greater context, Dwayne and his team have done a great job of providing geothermal to many of our buildings. And so this only is about half of our buildings. So you could imagine what the expenditure would have been without the geothermal and not the use of natural gas. But this is defined in the Iowa Code as an unusual, unique, or unforeseen circumstance. And so we are applying for the additional spending authority from the SBRC at their special session in June this year that they are holding just for these type of requests or other COVID-related requests that school districts might put forth. So this is our computation of those expenditures. It's looked at and has been looked at in several ways based upon units of service, which would be the therms, the cost per unit over the last 3 to 4 years, and is a relatively conservative estimate, or on the lower end, such that it should not be questioned in my mind by the SBRC that we're not trying to overstate our potential expenditure. Without having to go back and figure out heat units or degrees of cold or whatever the unit would be as to whether February was colder in Iowa than it was over the last 3 years. So we took an average and trended it over that 3-year period for both usage and cost to determine this estimate.
Thanks, Les. Any questions from directors? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Sean, I would, go ahead. drumming.
School Board Budget Review Committee, application for modified supplemental amounts for unusual, unique, and unforeseen circumstances related to the cost of natural gas in the amount of $170,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Charlie, do you want have something to like or anything?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right, Kim, I think we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you, Kim. Next up, we have our director liaison reports. Is there anything that directors wanted to highlight? Okay, we can move on to agenda setting then. Next Tuesday, we do have our policy and governance committee, so we will review any items that have been brought forth by directors. So thank you all directors for taking a look at them. And with the intent that we will bring them back for a discussion on I believe the first meeting in June, and then take action on it in the second meeting in June. That's the plan anyway. Unless there's more edits that we need to look at, but we're going to start with next week reviewing those changes. And then we have the following Tuesday, our next regular board meeting that has all of the normal items on it. So I would, as always, ask if there's anything either admin or directors would like to see added to that meeting on the 25th.
I would just ask the board to consider holding time for hopefully one last exempt session after the meeting on the 25th, as we don't open negotiations with two of our groups until later that week. So if we'll probably just need that, and I can provide more specific detail in our exempt session this evening, but just since we are doing agenda setting, to hold that time for the 25th, please.
We will mark that down. If the 25th meeting goes smoothly as tonight does, we should have plenty of time for an exempt session. So anything else directors would like to see added there? All right. Thanks to Chase. That was a reminder that we do have an exempt session here for folks. So don't run away. I think because it's only 5:48, I think we can go right into the exempt session unless I'm going to get dirty looks from people, but I'd just as soon get that started. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Just quick clarification. You mean we're going to hop off this link and go to the other? Okay, just wanted to clarify for folks. I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor, directors?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see some of you in a minute.
Thank you.